This is Kate Baconsale. You're listening to Baconsale.
You guys, I have a fantastic idea for a movie monster. It's going to be a big, giant lizard with big, spiky scales and a thorny tail. This huge reptile is also going to have sharp teeth and atomic breath, which can melt through anything in its path. And what do we call this giant, cold-blooded dinosaur? I'll tell you. Whale gorilla.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
It's a new franchise. This kid's a billion-dollar earner.
Whale gorilla.
Whale gorilla.
No, I don't know about that.
You'll learn more about that later.
Indeed.
Welcome to Baconsale. I'm Joel.
I'm Kent.
And I'm Zack.
We'd like to thank you for listening to our Twinner Winner song title show.
So much fun. How did that show turn out to be so much fun?
I was going to say, I actually had it in my heart that it was going to be a lot of fun, and it fulfilled what I wanted it to be.
There was a lot of fun comments and a lot of people who actually agree that this is a tier 1 episode.
There we go.
Yeah, including Teddy Swenson 3812, who had a couple comments but then said, finally finished the episode. Maybe it was the dolphin noises or the fact that every song became Barney, but this was tier 1 for me.
Yes.
Thank you, Teddy.
Shane Hyatt simply said, I don't think I've ever laughed so hard to a podcast. I enjoyed it.
Aw.
And then I really have to figure this out. So what is the word for four twins? Drew Dutler on Twitter asked that question for me.
Oh, it's
what's the word for four twins? Yeah, quadruple twins, Sam Ma replies. So I'm going to go with that. From now on, if there's four, it's quadruple twins.
Quadruple twins.
Amazing.
Yep. No, it was a lot of fun. We appreciate you listening to us. And be sure to check out our Spotify playlist, too. It's there for your enjoyment. I think it's like 51 songs, 3 hours
so much
of music. And it's a great playlist.
Except for the one song that Joel hates.
Yes. Also, we have a new patron.
Boop, boop, boop.
That's right. We have No One Special.
No One Special, but seems quite special.
That's what
at
they
the
call.
same time.
Wait, no, what? They call themselves No One Special.
I thought you were just being a jerk.
And no. It's No One Special. They are a I Am the Listener patron, which means they get
that's
order some
pretty
merch.
special.
Yeah.
They get free merch. They get to request a show and maybe even come on. And so it's a cool opportunity. And thank you, No One Special. Here's your shout out. We really do appreciate it.
Seriously, thank you.
You're awesome.
You're special to us.
Also, I have something else.
Oh, what?
So,
An audible?
as you know, the Shadow
It's time.
was a patron, became a patron.
Yeah.
And I've came up with a song, which is of the Bacon
Patron
Council.
song!
Yay! Bacon Council members get a song. So there's not much out there for the Shadow because it's an alias.
Yeah.
But here's what I came up with. Tell me something, boys. Why would a patron hide their voice and their identity? Ain't it hard keeping that from me? I'm failing to come up with lyrics for this song because this ghost, they keep their secrets from you and me. They are our patron, for this we thank them. One day they may be found, keeping things not dull on the Bacon Council. We're thanking the Shadow now. They're the Shadow. Thank you, Shadow. They're the Shadow. We're thanking the Shadow now. Woohoo!
I lit a candle for that song.
You should have lit a candle.
And I was waving the
messed
candle.
up. I'm sorry, Shadow.
It was amazing.
The volume was a little too soft, but there you go. The Shadow, that's for you.
It was so pretty.
And thank you, Zack, for joining in on the harmony.
I like how the Shadow is such a cryptic character, but gets that song.
It was
Hey, you. Your
I just turn around. I just want to see your face for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Joel. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Zack, for joining me on
Thank
that
you
as
for
well.
involving me. Thank you.
But yeah, so there you go. But that's not what we're talking about today.
Oh, that's not what we're talking about today?
No. What are we talking about today, Zack?
We are talking about Godzilla.
Woo! Wait.
Gojira.
Godzilla growls, real quick.
Now, guys, seriously, guys,
Yeah.
how many Godzilla movies have you seen? Kent?
And now too many?
How many approximately?
I would say 10.
Okay.
Wow.
I've seen about a dozen, Zach.
Lead up to this, I think only the Matthew Broderick one.
Okay,
Really?
the 1998.
Does that even count?
What
Yes.
about,
Yeah.
what about our guests?
Yes.
Guess here?
You have two of your Bacon Council members hijacking the Baconcave.
Two.
Yeah.
Two of them.
What? Double?
There are
Double.
two of them.
Double.
Is
Trouble.
it because we
Double
know
trouble.
so little about Godzilla, you're about to school us all?
Probably.
I mean, that's okay. I mean, sure, teach us more.
So, I mean, if you were to ballpark, how many Godzilla movies you guys have seen?
Well, I've seen all but the 3 Netflix animated ones.
And you are?
Oh, I'm Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Chris, how's it going? Thank you. Welcome back.
I figure everybody knows my voice by now.
Yeah.
And then we have
They can't even tell Kent and Joel apart. So.
No, yeah, it's been years. I'm Joel.
Yeah. No, you're not.
I am Nick.
Hi.
Hi, Trick Nick. That's me.
Go Knights, go.
she's back from the cryptid bracket to do another cryptid of sorts.
I love my monsters.
And you've seen how many of the Godzilla movies?
I've seen all of them. I have
So-
read the comics. I have seen the cartoons.
When you say all of them, how many Godzilla movies are there?
36.
What?
32 produced by Toho and 4 by the American and
Only
Studios.
36. I honestly thought there were like 78 Godzilla movies.
36
I
is
thought there
still-
were like 12.
Well, you think how many James Bond movies there have been, for
Yeah.
example. There's 20,
24,
25
yeah.
on the way.
Godzilla is taken the top with number ones of sequels in a franchise.
Oh, there you
James
go.
Bond is number 2.
There you go. And so, I mean, since the 50s, they've made these 36 films, and you've seen all of them. Mm-hmm. And so let's get into a little bit about why are we talking about Godzilla? Like, what is it about Godzilla that makes him...
Well, and also, why do you guys care so much about Godzilla? Like, what was your introduction to Godzilla?
And why did my introduction talk about whale gorillas?
yes, please. All of those questions, answer right now.
I'm here because every time Godzilla gets brought up in a Baconsale episode,
Gojira?
it's always Godzilla's the worst. And it's like, Godzilla...
I don't think we've ever said... Hold on.
Do you like that sound? The sound that Joel and I just collectively made.
No,
We are actually,
because-
that's the sound of one of Godzilla's greatest monsters.
It's actually not that
Team
far off.
JK.
But the thing is, anytime you guys trash on our Lord Godzilla,
Oh, it's not like he's Cthulhu all of a sudden.
me and Chris spend our break like, can you believe they said that again?
Exactly.
Okay, but why? Why do you like him so much?
He's Godzilla. As we have already figured out, I'm obsessed with Japan.
Yes.
And Godzilla is a big deal in Japan. So why wouldn't I like him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
See, I grew up with him, watching him with my dad. So my dad, he always liked the Japanese culture as well. And he even tried to learn Japanese a couple times. But I just grew up watching the movies with him. So...
And this does seem like the type of movies you'd watch with your dad. Like it's like it's kind of like westerns back in the day. How I was like, Dad, why are you watching this again? But Godzilla movies seem like that kind of like low budget. You have to be a fan of the genre because I feel like Godzilla is a genre in and of itself.
Well, it's considered like with Kamen Rider, it's tokusatsu.
Yeah, Kamen
Man in
Rider
suit.
being a TV series that
Which
we did a
whole
previous
show
show
about,
on.
yes.
Yes.
And you said tokusatsu, which explain that again. We talked about that on...
Basically, it's live action with special effects and
When you say special effects, we'll get into that.
suits.
They tend to be practical special
more
effects.
practical. I mean, a lot of these when you actually, I know you will see like the costumes and stuff, but when you understand that these people are risking their lives to be in the very first costume. Let's take this, the very first Godzilla costume.
Back in
It wa-
1954.
1954. It was right after the war. They were limited on their supplies. They couldn't use rubber and plastics. They had to make the suit out of concrete.
What?
Yeah.
So the guy was in that suit, in a concrete suit moving around. Now, if you think about that, you're like, that guy is dedicated to the art, man.
Well, he could only film for like a couple minutes at a time. Otherwise, he'd pass out in the suit because the breathing wasn't very good in there.
Wow.
He
Is
was
that why there were
overheating.
only a couple minutes of Godzilla in that movie?
A lot, yeah.
Probably so.
Well, and they also were limited on their film. They were using 1930s technology because that's all that was available
Available.
to Toho at the time.
Yeah, it's quite
Toho being the
Toho?
studio.
Yes.
Yes, that made
Sorry.
most of the Godzilla movies.
it's quite interesting
That's okay.
because
You guys are here as the expert. We're here as the everyman to pull back and be like, what does that mean?
Because like I find this so fascinating because you have King Kong back in 1933, right? And it uses stop motion technology generally, and they pull it off really well. But that was in the Hollywood system that had been making movies at that point for almost 30 years. Meanwhile, Godzilla comes out in the 50s, but doesn't quite have great technology, but it's not in the Hollywood system.
Well,
it
if
almost feels like a low budget foreign film production, which that's what it is.
You also have to realize the war had only been over for 9 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were still trying to even rebuild their cities
Yeah. And,
that had been destroyed in the war.
and the first Godzilla was primarily kind of this commentary on...
Well, let's talk about that.
Yes.
Okay.
So who is Godzilla as a character? Where did he come from?
Well, let's go back to what Joel said about whale gorilla.
Whale gorilla.
So when you break it down into the kaiju, gorilla's name actually, with Gojira, it's basically gorilla and whale. But over the translation, it came up to be Godzilla after the first movie.
Yeah, because it was Gojira when it was over there, and then they Americanized it Godzilla. But it's just funny to me that I'm like, it's a reptile, and they're using two mammals. What the heck?
Well, because he actually was going to, if you look at early designs, he actually started out to look like a whale. And then they went, there was like 32 different designs. He was a crocodile at one point. He almost actually had like more of a King Kong, but they wanted to get away from the King Kong look. So they had all these different varieties, and eventually they came on to more of the gorilla, or not gorilla, the lizard dinosaur kind of.
Well,
Yeah.
and that also is based on when they were creating Godzilla, they were inspired by the movie The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which is like a Ray Harryhausen stop motion animated B movie that was produced over here. And the original scriptwriter saw that and was like, I love that. Let's make that a movie. And then when Ishido Honda, who was the director of the original Godzilla, got a hold of it, he liked the idea of the irradiated monster as a commentary on the bombings of not only Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but there was also the hydrogen bomb testing in the Pacific Islands.
Okay.
And what had happened is there was a testing called Castle Bravo that was one of the first hydrogen bomb tests. And when the bomb went off, the bomb was larger. The explosion was larger than they had originally planned. And because it was secret, nobody knew that it was going to happen.
Oh, geez.
And so there were all of the fishing boats that were outside of the containment area.
Right.
And when the bomb went off, the fishermen saw the explosion, but they didn't know what it was. It was just this big bright flash. They were like, that was weird. And then these fishing boats just kept on their thing. Well, the boat that was kind of the closest to where this bomb went off started getting showered in dust, which was atomized coral was from this bomb. And it was, I want to say 300 times larger than the bomb that was in Hiroshima.
Wow.
Which was the deadliest. Even though the bomb in Nagasaki was larger, Hiroshima was deadlier. This happened in 1954. And so when this happened, they were like, oh my gosh, we have to somehow tie this in. And so what they did is the very beginning of Godzilla, you notice that there's a boat, fisherman, and then this thing goes off. And that starts the whole thing.
Wait, so it wasn't the Hiroshima bomb that created Godzilla?
No.
Oh, I always assumed it was. I always assumed it was a commentary on World War II, and Godzilla was kind of a reckoning, even though it felt unfair that he was coming to destroy Japan
It
at
was
that point.
both.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's a whole lot of stuff.
it's a whole level of, like, I have a note here that's saying if you look at Godzilla's skin, they tried to texturize his skin to make it look like the skin of people that were the survivors that were burned.
Okay, wow.
So if you look at the original Godzilla skin, it's supposed to be a reminiscence of
the keloid scars that these survivors had on their skin.
Well, but you bring up a good question. Kent, you kind of dovetailed into this. Is Godzilla a good guy or is Godzilla a bad guy? 'Cause
initially, he was a bad guy.
he's just a big wild animal. In some movies, it seems.
Well, he was. He was just kind of this hibernating thing in the ocean
Sleeping monster.
that was awakened by this bomb that went off. There's also kind of a look that as you go on further where Godzilla, he still kind of destroys the countries and cities and all of this kind of stuff, but he's kind of the defender. There's kind of a thought that some people look at Godzilla as kind of like the Americans. is that, yes, we destroyed their country, but now we're kind of Japan's protector because of the way that their constitution is
Well, that was
written.
the weird thing too is like sometimes Godzilla is the main threat. Meaning, at least, okay. So I should clarify. For this show, we were given assignments of about 5 to 7 movies to watch, and we got a sampler platter, as it were, from Nicole, and she gave us each movies to watch. And then it was interesting just to watch these and be like, sometimes he is just a giant wild animal predator that they have to fight against. That's the crux of the movie. The other times, it's like there's other monsters coming in, and then they need Godzilla to save them from the other monsters.
And Godzilla just kind of wakes up every time a new monster comes in.
It just depends on who's the bigger threat.
Yeah.
So,
and then they, no matter what, though, buildings get knocked over.
And it's interesting that you say, like, buildings do get knocked over, cities are leveled, but he's kind of a mascot, right? Like, he's a mascot for protecting Japan in most of these movies. He's the defender, even though the collateral damage is huge. But it's like he's the home team when a new monster or alien comes in, and he's got to destroy him.
From what I understand, a lot of Japanese will never see Godzilla as a hero because he's always going to be associated with the bombings. So they'll never see him as the hero. It doesn't matter because no matter when he comes in, someone's going to get hurt. Something's going to get destroyed. So he's never the hero. But if you get a little bit later on, you'll see like the costume designs. He gets a lot kid friendlier with the larger eyes.
Which was on purpose.
Yeah, because they wanted him to be a little more kid friendlier. They wanted to go for that.
He's like a hero
audience.
to the children. Some of these, it's like, there's one of my watch where he like has a little Godzilla doll, and he's like, "Hey, Godzilla is coming! Yay!"
So it feels like there's a shift, though, because I noticed in these notes that there were generations of Godzilla movies.
There are.
Based on the emperors of the time. Yes.
Yeah, because we were talking about this in the Kamen Rider show. So when it started, it was called the Showa era.
Okay.
And that
is more like we're being attacked. We need to stop this creature.
So you're talking about more of the classic.
Okay.
Those are the classic. Not all of them are the destruction.
Yeah.
Because the Showa era ones are just the ones from the 50s to like the 70s.
When you get more into the early Heisei era, so early 80s, mid 80s. Yeah, mid 80s. So that's more of the, I guess, more of the kid friend. No, because that's by a long
the
time.
reboot.
So and that's kind of when they kind of get a little nasty, but then they get a little more kid friendly, and then they get back when you get to the millennial area. It's just
and when does the millennial era start?
Wait, when you say whoo, I'm trying to figure out what that means because I watched some of the ones from the millennial era.
I like the millennial area just because it's just bat crap crazy.
And I don't like the millennial
They turn a
ones.
lot, at least from what I watched. It seemed like when they got to the millennium era, like to 2000, late 90s, 2000s, that they were like, okay, all those other movies don't exist. We're just starting from the 54 Godzilla to now. And
actually,
now
no. I think
sci-fi.
Millennium, they tend to just like kind of restart it. Some of them, they're kind of standalone.
Well, it feels like they're all standalone in relation to the 1954 movie. Like they all have the backstory of the 1954. Some of them do,
but some of them
don't.
Well,
if you go back and you look, so they actually celebrated 25th anniversary and they stopped. Then Zilla came along. Good old Matthew Broderick movie.
Zilla. No, we should clarify. The American 1998 Godzilla was so unrecognizable as a Godzilla character that they have created him as like another Titan called Zilla.
Yes.
It's not Godzilla.
No respect.
No, because
he doesn't deserve it.
They said they took the god out of Godzilla, so they call him Zilla. After that happened,
Wait, did they take out the whale or did they take out the gorilla?
Obviously both, because it was Jurassic Park in New York City.
It sounds great.
Personally, if you don't, I'm going to defend Zilla right now. If you don't think of it as a Godzilla movie, I highly enjoy it.
Truthfully,
it is not a Godzilla movie, but it would go great with the Jurassic Park.
For many viewers, that is their first experience to Godzilla here in the States. Where
I remember the Taco Bell commercials.
That's mostly what I remember.
Totally. Yeah.
I think we need a bigger box.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? That was it. And so it felt fun. It was the Roland Emmerich era of big action movies. Granted, that movie didn't quite succeed. The CG for the time was okay, but wow, looking at it now is pretty bad. And it was a way to, I guess, introduce Godzilla here. It just didn't catch on.
But then we had just recently with Godzilla 2014, they've started to do that. So can I ask Chris and Nicole, do you prefer the Japanese films or do you prefer the American films?
It depends.
Really? Because there are 32 Japanese films and 4 American films.
There are a handful of the Japanese ones that I love, and there are a couple of the American ones that I have enjoyed. But I'm not the super fan. Nicole is like the monster super fan.
So would you say you prefer the Japanese to the Japanese ones?
I couldn't tell you because I honestly enjoyed the last movie. I thought it was
Godzilla versus Kong.
Yes,
Oh,
I thought
I liked it too.
I saw it in the movie theater, and I was impressed with the fights.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies, and I'm going to tell you right now, if you could see it on the big screen, you need to, because when those monsters
We were
are...
talking about that in a big bit, yeah.
Yeah, when you are seeing those monsters fight, you feel it through the theater, and you're just like, oh.
So
At one part, when Godzilla goes right to the screen, you're like, oh my gosh, your eyes just light up. And I felt like I was back being a 6-year-old.
I have a fun fact. By the way. And I still don't quite believe this. My brain can't really wrap around it, but I found it and I'm like, well, it's on the internet. It must be true. So the 32 Japanese films have grossed $761 million total. The 4 American films have grossed $1.4 billion total.
yeah,
4
I mean,
films.
They're modern though.
But 4 films have outgrossed the entire history. That is crazy to
Right.
me.
You have to look at the time period, and
Well, you also have to look at like the film industry.
Yeah.
Is that I'm sorry, but we as Americans have a lock on the film industry. The thing is that the one that was produced, the Godzilla that was produced here, was actually called Godzilla, King of the Monsters, with Raymond Burr. So that was also the one that a lot of people saw. It was intercut with Raymond Burr in there.
They would take these films and kind of edit them for American audiences.
Yes, and because they wanted the American version to be more hopeful than the Japanese one, because the Japanese one at the end he's like, this can happen again, and the Raymond Burr one he's like, it's over, it's done, goodbye.
okay.
Because spoiler alert for almost every Godzilla movie. At the end of almost every single Godzilla movie, he ends up going back into the water and then going away.
And
And in every one, the humans are like, "Bye, Godzilla! You destroyed our city and killed my family." And he goes off as a hero or a destroyer, but still, it's almost every movie. He rarely dies in the series,
but he has died a
He
few
has
times.
died.
and then he comes back.
Actually,
Well, it's-
here's the
if you
fact: the
think about
first
it.
one, the first Godzilla, has actually died. The original Godzilla,
He's
is-
dead.
He is dead.
With the whole oxygen destroying thing.
Sure.
Eye patch
well,
guy.
as well as our little hero, scuba diver.
Yeah, the
he's
eye
gone.
patch guy, I call
So
him.
they're saying, I liked him.
The handsome Dr.
I say here, my note says eye patch guy steals every scene he's in.
Oh, he's
wonderful.
But eventually, you see Godzilla does reproduce. He has a son. There's a lot of juniors.
this is like the Jaws franchise,
Basically.
where they kill Daddy Jaws and then it's Mommy Jaws. And, yeah.
Do.
So you brought up, and this is very relevant to now, but you brought up King Kong versus Godzilla. And going back to that movie, like, so when I was 9 years old, I remember being at school being like, did you know? And like, I'd never seen the movie, but I acted like I did. I'm like, did you know that, like,
Are we surprised?
in King Kong versus Godzilla, like in Japan, Godzilla wins. Here in the U.S., King Kong wins a battle. Isn't that so cool? So it's like King Kong was the U.S.'s
That is a myth,
representative.
too.
And that's a myth.
And it's a myth.
It's a total myth.
Oh my,
Yeah.
it's a myth.
That was interesting to find out.
I was under that impression too, because when I thought I saw the original Japanese version, because technically neither win, because they both land in the water, and it's like, well, Godzilla's the squad.
It's ambiguous.
They're fighting. They roll down a hill. They go in the water, and then they kind of pop up and go their separate ways.
Well, you don't see Godzilla pop up. You hear him roar.
That's right. You see King
But
Kong
you
swimming.
so everybody's like, oh, King Kong won, and it's like, wait a minute, he's an aquatic dinosaur.
Also,
guy.
they don't fight. They just kind of stare at each other and then pound their chests and then slide down a hill.
Godzilla
rocks.
claps a lot.
He was throwing and kicking rocks at King
I
Kong. What are you
believe
talking about?
that King Kong told him to use vegetables. Remember, with the tree?
Oh yeah, he shoves the tree down his throat.
Which is awesome, because they did a replay in the new movie.
So the format of these movies is generally, and it may change because there's additional monsters, sometimes a lot of additional monsters, but there's a human element and there's a monster element.
In the first movie, by the way, it feels like it's 2 different movies. It feels like the humans are in one movie and Godzilla's in another. And obviously, they were limited in what they could do.
Yeah.
But the whole movie was, where's Godzilla? Oh, looks like Godzilla's coming. Everyone run, hide, and then they'll have the scene with Godzilla, and then the humans will come out again. You're right though that almost every single one of these kind of has, it's formulaic.
Yes.
In the sense of, like, a lot of action movies now are formulaic. Or like, I've compared it to the Fast and Furious franchise,
As you should.
where it feels like that a lot to me, where it is the story is secondary. It's about the action
Or not
pieces.
there at all.
Yeah. It's about action pieces. It's about cool looking things. And you're going to get exactly what you expect every time you go there. So,
Well, and interesting that you brought up Jaws. I feel like there's actually a little bit of comparison here too, because this first Godzilla movie kind of feels like a horror movie.
Yes.
You know,
As it should be.
Yeah, but then it does kind of. Well, I don't want to say devolve. It just changes.
It becomes,
direction.
it becomes
It
Jaws: The
evolves.
Revenge or
Yeah.
Jaws 3D.
Yeah, much like that franchise.
It's funny we mentioned the stop motion thing earlier. How you mentioned King Kong and then the
Harryhausen.
Leagues Deep one.
The Beast of 20,000
That's it.
20,000
Because they used
Fathoms.
stop motion in that one too, right?
Yes. Well, the reason why they didn't do this, they were going to do the stop motion animation, but because of the Castle Bravo incident with the bomb, they're like, we need to get this out immediately. We don't have the time, nor do we really have the money to do it. So we'll just build the miniatures. They were actually for like 1950s miniatures.
So-
the Waco building that he knocks over, that clock tower, looks just like the actual Waco
The
building.
thing
in
about
Tokyo.
it is, like, and it is. It's a giant guy. I actually watched this. My 6-year-old son came in the room, and we had this whole conversation about how'd they do that. And so we had this whole conversation about it. I showed him some behind the scenes stuff. He was fascinated by it. But it's a guy in a suit, and they make miniature everything: miniature trees, miniature mountains,
Miniature
toy cars.
lots of miniature tanks.
But I'll tell you what, that was the most impressive thing to me when I'm watching these sets, and I'm like, someone had to build all that. And I can only imagine that they're off screen going, oh, all my work destroyed, because they are smashing through everything like it's nothing.
Well, it's kind of like if you ever build Legos or if you ever built a domino thing.
I do enjoy playing with Legos. I want to point that out.
Sure you do.
That's why I brought it up. No, but like when you build up dominoes, you know what you're going to do.
It's a sandcastle.
Yeah, so it's going to happen. But in one of the movies, I want to say it's Mothra. They actually have in the Japanese release, they actually showed in the theater the behind the scenes of how they created miniatures. But with Mothra, because they had the priestess, they actually had a
Bring
large...
it back.
Huh.
So Mothra, priestess.
Deep dive.
Mothra is another character in the universe. It's a giant moth, and then the
Best girl.
priestesses.
Yeah.
They're little tiny people
Then
Yeah.
summon
worship
Mothra.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
So here's the thing. Like, we've made fun of, and in our previous Bacon Bit, we did a review on how weird the science fiction gets in the new Godzilla versus Kong movie. And it just seems really outlandish. But then you watch these movies, especially during the 70s.
Whoa.
When all of a sudden you have the princess from Jupiter on the planet, right?
Yep.
And there's global assassins trying to track her down. And then you have the priestesses
Little
from
fairies or
Infant
whatever.
Island.
Yeah.
And you're just supposed to go with it, I think.
yeah, because like I don't
In
know.
many cases, you have already seen Mothra the movie before you're
That's
being
what I was gonna say.
introduced, or you've already
This is
seen,
worse than Marvel, though. You have to see 32 other movies to understand.
I guess,
It's a
because
shared
it's
universe.
like, or you've already seen Rodan, so you know that this pterodactyl
Well, because
thing is
I
going to
would-
destroy Tokyo too.
Which one was that? Was that King Kong versus Godzilla? It might have been Godzilla versus the sea monster. But
That's Ebida.
Oh, that one's
yeah,
horrible.
but
That's the
I
big
think
giant
is the one.
shrimp guy.
But then Mothra's in that one as well, isn't it?
Mothra's in a
Yeah,
lot
yes.
of them.
Mothra shows up to
so
kind of...
I jump into this movie having no real concept. I know who Mothra is, but I've never seen her before.
I haven't
and
seen
all of a
Mothra
sudden,
either.
there's these tiny people, and everyone's just like, "Yeah, cool." There's tiny people, and
Okay.
I'm like,
So-
"Wait, what?"
Let me explain Mothra to you. Okay, you got to. Mothra is supposed to be the savior, as the savior of the world.
I thought Godzilla was supposed to be that.
But Mothra, she doesn't cause as much damage as everyone.
Mothra saves the day
Yeah.
from Godzilla.
So
She doesn't do much.
So you have.
But she eats giant sweaters, right?
Yes, all the time.
Godzilla-sized sweaters.
So, I mean, if you think of it, Mothra is more like a religious experience. So you have the priestess who do their songs.
These
to-
miniature little
yeah,
people.
they're like little fairies.
Yeah.
That bring her to life
Right.
when she's needed.
For the record,
You look confused.
I love the Mothra song. Like the little song they sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
They're
couple of them.
different.
There's
They're
there's like thematically similar, but they're all different songs. Love them.
I like them. I like the harmonies that they have.
Yeah, that's
you
my
know.
thing.
And here's a little fact you probably didn't know: in the last Godzilla movie, which one, King of the Monsters, the main lady that's in it, they actually have a theory that she's one of the fairies, that because she's the one that's working with Mothra.
yeah,
Okay.
no, you
Yeah.
see
So,
the
Nicole,
twins.
Yeah.
you already lost me.
Yep.
You
but
see
that's
Infant
okay.
Island, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So we've talked about Mothra. Let's move right on to explain some of the other big bads.
Okay.
Because and definitely describe them in detail. Because some of the new movies, like we've seen Rodan, Ghidorah, and Mothra, and I want you
Okay,
to
so
describe
those
all
are-
of
Do
them.
we
So
call
you-
them Titans?
Yeah, so they're
no,
well,
they don't consider them titans. They're just kaiju. They're
kaiju.
monsters.
They're
Okay.
giant
They just call
monster.
them monsters.
So-
Titans, I guess, is in the new American.
Yeah, they
American
call
ones.
them titans in the new ones.
So, you have the big four. You
Yes.
have Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah. So
Ghidorah's not from Earth.
yeah, he is an alien. And so
So he comes down. There's an asteroid that hits.
Well-
it's like an egg.
In all of everything that you see, he's already here. He's not in an egg. He just shows up.
That seems like the case with most of these monsters. Like, by the way,
The
there's
rest of 'em-
By the way, there's a giant moth. Accept that
But
reality.
see, the reason why they're giant is because of all of the nuclear testing and nuclear stuff in the air. Because again, when all of these movies were
Couldn't
made,
they just
there's
get
the
ninja powers
radio-
like the rest of the reptiles out there, or amphibians, rats?
Well, they were made from radioactive ooze, right? So again, radioactivity is the center of all of
that
it.
was a Ninja Turtles joke.
That was
Took me a second.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
King Ghidorah, is that the Joker to Godzilla's Batman?
Yes.
The three-headed dragon that has
in my
lightning
opinion,
powers?
he's in King Ghidorah is in more movies.
How
than
come he
it-
gets a king title? That
Because
belongs to Kong alone.
because he destroys worlds. When you see Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, or they also call him Monster Zero in some of these original movies, he has destroyed cultures and worlds. That's why the lady from Jupiter comes to Earth and warns everybody, hey, this guy is on his way. He wants to destroy your planet. He's already destroyed mine.
So the Silver Surfer and
Thank you.
Galactus.
Thank you very much.
I have to
for
bring
that.
in terms I understand.
Joel, there's plenty of room for multiple monarchy.
No.
So-
I'm just saying, I'm putting it in terms I can understand. It helps me out. So,
Many
okay, so
kings.
let's talk about more rogues. So I call them
Yeah,
rogues.
Rodan. He's a
Rodan.
pterodactyl.
He's Starscream.
Okay. But without like a personality, or is there a personality?
So Rodan he actually showed up in,
He has his
It
own.
was
Ghidorah.
Godzilla versus
He showed up in
I saw
Ghidorah.
that one.
He has his own.
but he has his own series after.
Is it this like Hobbs and Shaw from Fast and Furious, where they're like, that character is really like everyone really loves him. Let's give him his own spinoff.
Well, see, that's actually what happened with Mothra. Mothra had her own series. They liked her so much, they decided to put her in Godzilla. Now, Rodan started off in Ghidorah.
Okay.
Oh, he was.
Yeah,
I
and
thought
so
he had his own.
They liked him so much, they
gave him a spinoff.
gave him a series.
And when
Okay.
he goes to fly, he basically is like the nuclear wind that you see in the
Yeah, it's
Nevada
represented
tests.
pretty well in The New King of the Monsters.
Yeah, well, but he was like the nuclear testing. You see the buildings when he goes to take off. He's nuclear wind, basically.
Okay.
So, I mean, are there any other big heavy hitters?
Anguirus, he's the first kaiju.
it sounds like a He-Man villain.
Yeah.
He's actually the
Anguirus, I'll get you.
he's actually the very first kaiju that Godzilla fights. He's in Godzilla Raids Again.
Which was
Which is-
like 2 hours and 40 minutes long.
It's not worth it.
It's
That's one of
not
those
very
ones I
good.
was like, and they screwed up on the filming of it. So when you see Anguirus and Godzilla fighting, it was supposed to be slow mo. They cranked the camera wrong. It didn't go into slow mo.
It goes fast?
It goes fast, so it looks like Benny Hill.
So just play yakety sax over it, and it might make it a little bit more enjoyable.
And so you'll see Anguirus come in a lot. He's like Godzilla's buddy when he's not fighting him.
Mm-hmm.
Which movie is it? I can't remember which one, but they actually talk to each other.
So
I didn't see that one.
actually, the conversation goes a little bit like this.
Oh,
Ken saw this one? This is on Kent's list?
So they're speaking, and the reason they're speaking is because the priestesses can translate the language, but they're
that's
in
right.
English. You get the voice bubbles that are in Japanese, but they're speaking in English. And
no.
Godzilla sounds a little bit like this.
Hey, Angus. What do you want? Something funny going on. You better check. Okay, hurry up.
That's the dialogue between
it is.
Godzilla and Anguirus.
Wow.
It's really just beautiful.
It sounds better in Japanese, probably.
I saw it in
It's
English.
kaiju language.
So it's weird because in English they say Anguirus, but it's supposed to be Anguirus.
Yes.
Like anger, you know? But he's kind of like Godzilla's whipping boy.
So I watched one that I was really there's this. It's Godzilla versus Biolante, I think, or
Biolante.
Biolante. And for the most of the movie, I was
quite a flair.
It's this movie that's like, oh, it's a real green movie. It's like, here's a giant vegetable. It's a very Power Rangers heavy movie, basically.
Yeah.
And then a lot of these, right?
A lot of these later ones feel very Power Ranger.
And then all of a sudden, because Godzilla fights this giant sunflower, essentially, kills him, and
Rose.
this thing comes back. Thank you. This thing comes back and becomes this horrifying monster, and it's one of the better creature designs I've seen in these
It's
movies.
amazing. And it took, I forgot how many people to puppet. It's an actual
It
puppet.
becomes like a
It's-
giant Venus flytrap.
So basically,
yeah.
you have and Biollante is a girl. So you actually have her veins coming out.
The trellis, something like that.
Yeah, so they have like almost kind of like an Audrey 2 kind of like thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, that's
From
what,
Little Shop of Horrors.
Mhm,
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, you get.
Yeah, I got you.
So, but I mean, she's massive. She's she's like the second biggest kaiju I think he fights.
Well, and it's interesting you
So-
talk about size because Godzilla's size has changed throughout the movies too. He started 50 meters.
Yeah. So I actually got it.
He
here.
has to grow to be bigger than the cities that
So
he's destroying.
yeah. So that's
Sure,
that's
yeah.
why he grew. So
Because skyscrapers grow, and so they want Godzilla to grow to be a scale. Yeah.
So in the original 1954, he was 164 feet. He's 400 feet long and weighed 20,000 tons.
Okay.
That's one big boy.
That's a big lizard.
So in the current movie, he is 393 feet with a tail of 1,000 feet, over 1,000 feet, and he almost weighs 100,000 tons.
Dang.
But if you watch the anime, that's when he gets big boy. So he is over 1,000 feet tall, and his length is it's a kilometer long, and it's over 100,000 tons. So
Okay.
he's massive.
No big deal.
So
Well, he's put on some weight in there.
but in the anime,
It's normal.
It's a little spoiler.
Anime
here.
adds like 10 pounds.
Yeah.
10,000
Yeah.
pounds.
In the Netflix movies, they're animes. Spoiler: it's 10,000 years in the future.
Ah.
So he's
Which
just
brings
been
up,
growing.
you bring up something that just reminded me of Mechagodzilla.
Mechagodzilla.
So Mechagodzilla comes and goes in a couple of these too, even in very recent ones. And it's just a robotic version of Godzilla. But is it? I guess is it always created by humans to fight against Godzilla, or sometimes it's like a space
the
creature?
original,
Well, I think the original wasn't he?
he
was
developed
created
by
from
He
aliens.
was created by aliens.
Was that one of yours?
No,
Zach.
I'm familiar with this one because I had to look back because I was missing a Mechagodzilla space in my homework, and so I looked it up because I had I had
Delegate my Mechagodzilla homework.
I had the Tokyo SOS, and I looked into
Oh,
that.
you're the one that got stuck with that one. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just had to figure out what was going on. So yeah, originally Mechagodzilla came from aliens, but then later was used by humans to defend against Godzilla.
What happened
Okay.
was the humans are like, we need to find Mechagodzilla and use him for our own purposes instead of allowing the aliens.
But
the alien Godzillas are not my favorites.
Well,
Now-
but
So-
here's the thing I want to bring up too, is that this is just something I noticed. This is not a criticism. This is not a commentary. This is just
Criticize away, Joel.
You can
Something
feel
I-
critical.
Something I noticed is that the movies basically go like this.
Okay.
Godzilla shows up. They shoot him for a while. It doesn't work. They zap him. It doesn't work. Then later in the movie, Godzilla comes back and they shoot him for a while and zap him and it works.
You got to up your game.
That's
Haven't you ever heard of Power Ups Game Boy?
just saying. That's what happens. Because it seems like,
Okay.
and it doesn't matter how cool the costumes are, because they'll get these really, like the one I watched, Hedorah. It's a
We've
smog
got to talk
monster.
about that one.
That's
It's a-
one of my honorable
It's a
mentions.
monster created by pollution, and it's a smog monster. He's like a blob, and then he turns into a spaceship for a little bit, and then he turns into a monster, and the monster is super cool. But it doesn't matter what they look like because it always ends up with them punching each other for a while,
Slowly, yeah.
very slowly. And every single time they're punching each other, I'm just like, Godzilla, you always fight for a bit, and then you use your atomic breath. Why don't you open with atomic breath and
Well,
get this
maybe-
fight over a little quicker?
Maybe he needs to let that charge up a little bit.
He's been hanging out in the ocean for the whole movie.
He's cold. He's got to warm up.
So you mentioned the scream and Godzilla's roar. I think that is used no less than 57 times per movie. At the beginning, and then at the end, another 57 times. Like, they use that a lot. And props to him, it is a very iconic sound.
It is.
Actually made by a leather glove and pine and resin, I think it was, across a
double bass.
A double bass. Which I was like, how does that sound like that? But, they sped it up and manipulated it. But it sounds great. But I'll tell
Because
you what.
all of the animal sounds that they sampled and tried to change and all that kind of stuff, they couldn't find it. And so they actually turned to the man who created the score for the original Godzilla. And they're like, hey, can you help us out? And he came up with it. And they're like,
It's creative.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which the original Godzilla has a theme that if I try to like conjure it up in my brain, it just turns into the theme from The Shining.
Oh,
Close enough
that was
to
the
me.
other thing. In Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, Ibida, the Horror of the Deep, they use like a James Bond surf guitar when Godzilla's coming out. It's like...
And then Godzilla dances. He's flinging.
Yeah, and then in Godzilla vs. Hedorah, which I also watched, they have like this sultry horn music where it's just like...
Well, they have
Every time
the-
Godzilla comes up out of the water, and I'm like, what is happening?
Well, and you have to realize with Hedorah, they also have the family-friendly party.
I'm 90% sure that the filmmakers of Godzilla versus Hedorah were high during filmmaking.
They probably were, but that one is actually pretty good in
I
my opinion.
I love Hedorah. Unfortunately, I can't share my very favorite fact on this show.
because it's not
Okay.
family-friendly at all.
So let's get back to these filmmakers, because if they made 32 movies since 1954, and they are still making these movies, correct? In Japan. What was the most recent one?
The most recent one was Shin.
Okay, so
Godzilla.
in 2016.
You saw
So
that one, didn't you,
I
Ken?
did.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that. But it seems like maybe these movies were all very profitable over there, and they're like, okay, we have a year and a half to make a new movie. And it seems like they didn't really write great scripts. Like, from a movie critic point of view, these are not very good movies.
Well, because they're not there to write a good story. They're there to show monster battles.
Right, they're there to capitalize on the success of the previous one and
the
just
formula
keep
worked.
it going.
Which
Don't mess
is
with
why eventually more and more people were like watching television. So actually, less and less people were interested in the Godzilla movies. So that's why they became more child-friendly and geared
Oh, is that
toward
true?
children.
Okay, so they started to lose steam a little bit.
Yes. So they were like, well, children still love the Godzilla movies. Let's have them. Let's cater to them.
So then they brought in like child actors and stuff into the movies because still, like, when they have like these scientists in the movies, it felt like a Thundercats episode every time I watch one of these movies, because the humans do something and then Godzilla goes back into the ocean. At the end, there's always this moral lesson. It's like, humans have been the real villain all along.
pollution is bad.
Yeah.
Panthera.
And it just felt...
Panthro. Good heavens.
Yeah, I mean,
Panthera's
it's a late night. Pantera.
My brain is burned. By the way, I was going to mention this because you mentioned the 30 years. So I found out the 60s and the 90s had the most Godzilla movies made, but 7 each, whereas the 80s and 50s only had 2. So it seems like 70s they may have maybe overdone it, and then
They actually had one come out each year.
Yeah.
And then, what was it, in 76 they actually had 2 come out.
And they knew they weren't good, right?
they were cranking them out.
pretty much.
They were cranking. But again, like she says, it caters to your audience. Let's take Godzilla versus Megalon. That wasn't even supposed to be a Godzilla movie. It basically was Ultraman, an Ultraman kind of show. But they're like, well, we need to make this more profitable, so let's put Godzilla in it.
Because he was probably a bigger premier name, a more marquee name than probably any actor.
Yeah.
Well, but even Godzilla versus Sea Monster, apparently it was supposed to feature King Kong first, but then during development they're like, nope, put Godzilla in there. That'll work.
Oh, so King Kong versus Sea Monster, which is a great name.
I would
Sea
watch
Monster.
it. Well, yeah, Ebita is what the name of the
Now,
monster
Joel,
is.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Seeing as how you watched Godzilla versus the Sea Monster,
Yes, it did.
and we're talking about Godzilla versus Megalon, did you ever see any of these on MST3K?
I know I did. I know I have.
Mystery
There's-
Science Theater 3000.
Yes, there's one where I remember there's just this scene where he's like, Godzilla is flying along by his tail. It's like his tail is on a railroad track, basically. He's just going,
it's
like zooming
ridiculous.
Yeah, that's Megalon.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
But
And so, because there have actually been 2 Godzilla movies that were featured in Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I don't think the ones I saw were on there.
That they only had the 2. So,
Only had
well,
2.
but if you watched Godzilla versus the Sea Monster,
That was
one of them.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
Okay, so do we want to talk more about monsters? Because I heard something about Destroya being a pretty big deal.
That's that's probably in my top 3.
Can you describe Destroya to us?
Destroya.
Destroy. Okay, first of all, they couldn't say destroyer because they couldn't copyright it. So they spelled it a different way, Destroya,
Yeah.
So basically, it's this monster that is a microscopic sea crab, but, came to life. And it actually brings in a black hole into the center of the Earth. I mean, he basically...
Yeah, it makes sense for the series.
So basically, Destroya is the embodiment of, like, Satan. That's what people like. That is the devil himself. If you look up the picture of him, he is literally scary.
Destroya.
Destroya. So
But actually scary back when those movies came out.
yeah.
Well, and
this
Destroya
came out in 2005. So
And Destroya was actually,
He looks like the Jersey Devil.
he does. He was kind of the embodiment of the oxygen destroyer that destroyed the original Godzilla.
Oh, so there's actually a fair fight there.
yeah, actually, it's not fair. I mean, there's a lot of death in this movie. There's
Including,
Oh, you mean every movie?
well,
no. I'm
not
talking
the people, like the
I'm
actual
talking,
monsters.
The monsters don't survive.
And don't come
Oh.
back.
Interesting.
I'm into that
because this was supposed to be the end all, kind of an end all movie.
And this came out after Godzilla Final Wars, which seems like a very final title, which is a all out monster battle, which is another movie, all out attack. But there are so many of these grand, it's like a Royal Rumble, right? Think wrestling. Where all these monsters come into the ring, and Godzilla is Hulk Hogan, that is going to, or The Rock, that's going to beat every other wrestler there.
And I was going to ask, was that a treat for Godzilla fans to see all these monsters in one movie?
I love Final Wars. It's my absolute favorite.
Which, actually, I want to bring this back too, because this is more my topic. But family friendliness. Most of these movies are pretty squeaky. I mean, yes, people die, but it's usually, not too gory, not too bloody, not too traumatic.
Destroya actually has a PG-14, PG-13 rating.
Ooh. Well,
because
I like that.
Because, I mean, did you watch Destroya?
I did.
Okay. It's not, I can't spoil things, but...
You give a spoiler.
I'll give you one
Nicole,
spot.
I'm going to make you promise 99% of people aren't going to watch Destroya.
Well, Destroya uses Junior as bait.
Junior being
Junior Godzilla.
Baby Godzilla.
Baby
And-
Godzilla, yeah.
What happens? You can say it. It's okay. This is a safe place.
He did.
Yeah, he kills Baby Godzilla.
Right in
basically.
front of him. Right in front of Godzilla. So, I mean, and you're looking and you're like, oh my gosh, you're feeling for these creatures. And you're just like...
Wait, but even then, I was going to say, most of them aren't gory, most of them aren't bloody. Godzilla Final Wars was the only one where I was like, ooh, they shot some people and there's some blood splatter. Like these aliens basically take over people and then they split apart into their head will split apart. But for the most part, you can watch this with with your kids.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'll state this. These movies became more enjoyable if my kids were in the room because they were absolutely
that's how I
fascinated by
got into
them.
them because I watched them with my dad,
So it seems like we're now, at least with the Japanese ones, and the one that I watched, it seems like they're going the dark and gritty side. So I was watching this movie called Shin Godzilla. You guys, I think I heard that sound when I started the movie, and you guys weren't even in the room. Because I was like, oh, I hear there's something to Shin Godzilla.
Is he the one that plays the dreidel?
Yeah, he actually kicks, he plays soccer, and he just kicks people in the shin. So
Both going with Shinjo.
So in this movie, I was waiting for this other monster to show up. And then, as standard in a Godzilla movie, Godzilla comes out of the ocean and says, how dare you? This is my territory. Let's destroy it together. So this creature comes out, and it's very lizard snake-like, and it's horrifying.
It's a tadpole.
The creature design it's got these weird buggy eyes that should look fake, but they're actually quite scary. And you just see
Hedorah
people
was the tadpole.
Well,
No, Shin.
and so all of a sudden, I'm like, hey, where's Godzilla? When's he going to show up to fight this thing? This thing is a really scary monster. Then all of a sudden, this thing starts to evolve during the movie.
It starts to morph.
And like Joel said, the military's like, pew, pew, let's shoot it a lot. Didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, the thing stands up and evolves more and evolves more. And I'm like, that is Godzilla. Godzilla just evolved in its own movie, and I'm like, this is the kind of reboot that I think everyone needs to see. In fact, this may be the only Godzilla movie anyone needs to see, because it's actually a scary monster.
Well, yeah. I mean, he has extra face on his tail that's a laser.
Well, now you just ruined it. Thank you, Nicole.
Oh, scary.
that laser face.
No, Hedorah, when Hedorah had a red pulsing head and his eyeballs poking out red, he's a smog monster, but he was kind of scary looking.
Okay.
And that's the only part of Hedorah's body that can be destroyed is
His eyes.
her eyes.
Her eyes. Yeah.
By the way, fun fact, we talked about how tough these actors were inside the Godzilla suits. During the filming of Godzilla versus Hedorah, the guy who was inside the suit actually he was struck with appendicitis, but they were forced to do the appendectomy while he was still wearing the suit because it took too long to take off.
What?
So he's in the suit getting surgery, and during the surgery, he learned that painkillers had no effect on him.
So when he's screaming
That's
in the fights,
Bad timing to find that out.
Well, and Hedorah is the heaviest suit.
it's over 300 pounds.
Yeah, it's like 380 pounds.
It's a big old black blobby thing.
But
So-
I have some things about Shin that
Yes.
yeah,
Because
please do.
it's
Because I feel like
amazing-
this is the direction
I think-
that the series should have been for a long time.
I think if people have question about what Godzilla is or what he's about, Shin is the best way because you could actually see how he was as smaller creature and how he evolved. I mean, you're talking stuff comes off him and
Now, all right, so you're saying watch that over even the 1954 original
No,
Godzilla?
you need to see
No.
the original 1954.
I think
Or Shin.
everyone should see the first one. It's kind of a slow burn, but it's a really
It
good
launched a franchise.
It's a really good love story to
but
Japan.
it's
and
not quite what King Kong was to film. It's still pretty shoddy.
Yeah, well,
Again.
But if you want the film history of this
Yeah.
franchise, yes, watch it.
but if you want something new,
I pay my respects.
Yeah,
Yes.
if you want something with really great special effects, Shin is the way to go.
And so-
Because he is literally terrifying.
I don't know that
Sorry.
the blobby spaceship in Godzilla 2000 Millennium, was it? Is that the one with the spaceship, the flight of the Navigator CGI
Yeah.
spaceship?
Yes.
So that thing, I was like, wow, that is one of those kind of Lawnmower Man moments where like, look how cool this technology is, but like 10 years later, you're like,
Yeah.
that looks so
I'm
bad.
not. It's nice to know I'm not the only one that got Flight of the Navigator out of
Totally.
that shit.
It's totally.
But okay, Shin, this is like one of my favorites. So the few things about that is there's actually a Studio Ghibli tie-in with Shin Godzilla.
Of course you would bring this up.
Of course,
yeah,
any,
because
any
those who don't know,
surprise.
Chris was on our Studio Ghibli show, and we watched all the Studio Ghibli movies.
It forced you guys to watch all of it.
That was great.
But it was co-directed by Hideaki Anno, which was the voice of Jiro Horikoshi, and he actually got
cool.
his start with Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and then he created his own animation studio. So if you think about a Godzilla movie being partially a CG animated movie, what better way than to go with an animated studio and an animation
That's a good point.
director?
But it does feel like every time they stray from miniatures and people in suits, it's dated a lot faster. Like, even though it looks corny in 1954, it's real. But like some of these ones where they tried to incorporate CGI, I'm like, that looks bad.
Okay,
now.
But Shin looks amazing. I mean,
What was that
it's-
one made again?
It was made
2016.
Okay,
so it's
that's
very
fairly
modern.
recent. Okay.
And
Well, I mean, just looking at the list of movies that I watched. So we got a movie that came out in 1968, then 1994, then 2003. We took a journey as far as the special effects
yeah.
go.
Yes.
for that.
Yeah, by the time we reached like the 90s ones, I was like, oh, they're getting better. And then 2000s, I'm like, hey, good job, you guys.
Yeah.
Still a man in suit, but
Still a man in suit.
Good job.
Yeah.
But for me, honestly, I do prefer the miniatures and the suits over the special effects.
As do I.
but what you ought to do is check out Shin.
yeah,
Well,
and I haven't seen that one.
And the thing about Shin is it was made post 2011 nuclear disaster,
Yeah.
tsunami,
Yeah.
earthquake, and so that's the reason why you kind of have the feeling of helplessness from the people, with the government.
Yeah.
And also, Anno had been watching a lot of like Sorkin films, and so that's why it feels kind of like a Sorkin film. In
The
some of those
human
things.
element of that is very West Wing-ish, where prime ministers and governors are involved, and
Yes.
it's
Which-
very government.
but see,
walk and
it's-
talk?
Yeah,
yes.
a lot.
A lot of walk.
And that's where he got his inspiration from. Is he's I guess had just seen like The Social Network and is like, I want that. If you guys talk too slow, we're cutting you out.
I was going to say the ones that we watched were
Subtitled.
Japanese spoken with English subtitles.
That's the
And
way you
that's
should
the
be
way
watching.
I prefer
the
it.
proper way.
Because then when you watch it, there was only one I think there was two I watched that were English dubbed, and that's what it makes it so much like the camp level is already pretty high,
Right.
And then when you dub over it, you're like, this is just corny at this point.
Yeah, because what happens is you don't need as many words in Japanese as you do in English. Or there's a lot of Japanese words and not as many in English. So it's that we have to try and match the lip flap on the Japanese lips and the English words,
Right.
and it just is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
And I was going to ask you two, Kent and Zach,
Hi.
on the ones you watched, did it feel when you hit the 2000s that they were taking themselves a little more seriously at that point and trying to be more like, I don't know, dramatic action rather than campy comedy horror?
We've talked about Godzilla Final Wars, and I think this is one we all watched. And they
As
try to
you should.
they try to make the human element kind of
50th anniversary.
They try to make it an action movie
Boy,
instead
that's-
of just
Yeah,
conversation.
there's like, it's a kind of a knockoff John Woo thing going on.
Yeah. And I don't
this
think
movie.
they pulled it
Matrix
off
influence
very
too?
well.
No.
Oh,
Sorry,
I thought I
Nicole.
was watching like a Matrix knockoff, and they were going to go dirt bike later.
Yeah.
There's
Because of the
there's literally a
costuming.
scene where is that the one where they're driving on motorcycles and
Yes.
fighting each
Yeah.
other?
Yeah.
Yes,
That was crazy.
and like
Also,
the
when
bullets. Oh my gosh!
The two kaiju are fighting each other, and Sum 41 starts playing.
And I
was
feel
like,
like
whoa.
I feel like that's when the filmmakers were saying, okay, maybe people don't really care about the humans in our movies. Let's make them just as watchable and action-packed as the monsters.
Yeah.
Because in the final battle, there is this double act where the monsters are fighting above.
Yeah.
And then you have the dude fighting Pete Wentz. And,
Right.
You know.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the one that made me really question geography, though.
Sure.
Because Godzilla's he's in the South
Monument
Pole.
Valley.
He's in the South Pole, and then he walks to Sydney from the South Pole, and then he goes to New Guinea from Sydney. Like I actually looked it up, and I'm like, I looked up the total flight duration, and it's 8 hours 60 minutes to fly to Sydney from the South Pole.
Yeah.
And he walked
Did you
there.
know you could just take paths to the hollow earth and then come out the other end?
Hollow
Joel?
Earth.
That's
Well,
it.
I did. I forgot about that.
And the thing that cracked me up is they're like Arizona, and they show
Yeah.
Monument Valley. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, that's southern Utah.
Yeah.
But now, just to let you guys know, I do have a list of the cities destroyed by Godzilla.
Okay.
And how many times they have been destroyed.
Oh,
Money's
my.
on Tokyo.
Yep.
And well, in some of these
You'd be
are
surprised on that.
also included on, I think Mothra and like Rodan. Some of those cities also show up. So it's not super accurate, but we're gonna go as, hopefully as close as I can.
All right.
So Tokyo is the big winner. Yeah.
The big winner for being destroyed the most times.
Yes, it's been destroyed 13 times.
36
You
movies.
think they'd stop rebuilding it after a while.
No, they actually brought up in one of the movies I said, there's like, Godzilla comes, he destroys, but we always rebuild. And I'm like, okay.
He'll be back next year.
Yeah.
And then New York City has been destroyed 3 times.
Wow.
Does that include Zilla?
Yes.
Okay.
Fukuoka, which is on the island of Kyushu, which is in the kind of the south, it's been destroyed 3 times. And the reason why it's been destroyed 3 times is I guess that was the home of the first nuclear power plant.
Okay, so
in
there's
Japan.
relevance
And
there.
so like Godzilla is attracted to it because it's like, I need some dinner. I'm going to Tokai.
Because he's attracted to energy. Like the thing where they bring it up a lot, it's like, turn off all the lights, turn off all the electricity, and then he'll ignore us. Like even in the newer movie, they're like, turn off the engines, let's let him go away.
He is energy, so he could probably feel it if you think about it.
That's true.
And especially nuclear energy, which is what they use
Which, if you think
mostly in Japan.
submarines are, and
This is just a kid in me.
Yeah.
But every single time he charges up and his scales start glowing, I'm like, here it comes.
It's exciting for sure.
Pretty awesome.
Okay, he's destroyed Osaka twice, Yokohama twice, which is not surprising because Yokohama's also in Tokyo Bay. It's just on the other side. He's destroyed Nagoya twice.
Now you say destroyed, but I say someone painstakingly built a miniature version of. Because like every time you say destroyed, I'm like, someone made all that and then they just knocked it down.
Destroyed it. Okay, we've got Paris has been destroyed twice.
Oh, are these all in Japan? I'm just asking for a geography
So far-
stupid
Yeah,
person like
Paris.
myself.
Paris,
Paris is in France.
Paris, Japan.
New York
Paris,
City,
Texas.
Japan.
Yes.
Idaho too.
Yeah.
Just move to New Zealand, and I think you're fine. Like
Yeah.
no one's going to destroy New
Montana
Zealand.
seemed pretty safe there too.
Yeah.
Well, you'd think, but he went to Okinawa, destroyed it too. I'm assuming that the city of Naha, which is kind of like Okinawa's big city, but it's like tropical paradise, and he destroyed a tropical paradise. So there you go.
He's a bully.
He is. He's destroyed Boston, Pensacola, that one spot in Mexico. I don't know if it's like a real place, but
Mexico's real.
I do know that.
Yeah.
But where Rodan comes back in King of the Monsters.
Right.
I don't know if that was based on a real city or not. And then you've got Washington, D.C. I was going to say you're not missing much, but I actually like Washington, D.C.
Do you know what else Godzilla has destroyed? My expectations for a good Godzilla movie.
what?
Fair.
I mean, look, we gave this last one a decent review because of the action, because it's fun to watch
it's
this kind of destruction, right?
If you're looking for like high cinema
Yes.
and high art, you're not going to a Godzilla movie.
Very true.
As I said, it's like the Fast and the Furious.
Yes.
You know
thi-
what you're
this-
signing on to.
This is what I explain to people. They're like, well, there's not a lot of really good human interaction. I'm like, when I go to a Godzilla movie, I'm not going to go see Shakespeare. That's kind of saying, I'm going to go to this boxing match. I really hope a ballet breaks out.
Okay.
You know?
But Nicole,
to break out, because then I would be interested.
but that's like watching a Godzilla movie is like you're watching 70% ballet happening during the boxing match because they still include the filler. It's always there.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a movie that actually nails it with the human element? Because I think a lot of movies, like for example, the 1998 Godzilla movie with Puff Daddy on the soundtrack,
Yeah, boy.
Dun-dun-dun.
that tried to make these characters, it tried to add jokes and try to make it really relatable. And there's maybe too much comic relief. And Matthew Broderick, who's adorable. And I think they tried to make that in a very 90s way,
Well-
approachable.
Well, they also this is I think the downfall of the movies, they made the monster a little too sympathetic.
Yes.
Where at the last image you see of Godzilla is her moaning in sadness as she's around her eggs, her babies, because they're all going to be destroyed. And it puts this sour taste in your mouth of, oh man, that was kind of bad.
We shouldn't kill her.
We shouldn't have done that.
We just destroyed a whole species.
Yeah.
I actually think Shin actually nails it.
Okay.
Yes.
I think Shin.
That probably is the closest. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is your high point and low point of the Godzilla movies for you guys?
Well, for me, I do have 3 favorites. Like you guys
Yeah,
asked us for.
from worst to first.
Well, worst to first. I've got. I didn't rank them. My 3 favorites is clearly the original.
Okay.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
the original.
Tip your hat to it because it launched a franchise.
And it's. I mean, with as little as with the little budget that they had, the crappy stuff that they were dealing with, the country is being rebuilt to create such an allegory on nuclear weapons, nuclear destruction. The fact that, spoiler alert,
For 1954.
for 54,
Right.
the doctor that created the oxygen destroyer that kills Godzilla sacrifices his life because he doesn't want
He doesn't want to be used
his
again.
technology of the oxygen destroyer to get out or have him be taken hostage or whatever and forced to reveal his secrets. So
Okay.
he's like, I am going to sacrifice myself to kill this monster,
But never again.
but we're done.
Yeah.
Little did they know that there's like a gajillion Godzillas living in the Pacific Ocean. My second favorite would be Shin Godzilla. I mean, it's amazing. And
Yeah,
again,
I think that's a recommendation.
So you went from like one of the earliest one to one of the later ones.
Yes.
to a basic reboot, I would say, with
Yes.
Shin Godzilla.
And, clearly Studio Ghibli tie-in. And actually, when they were in the process of making Shin Godzilla, Studio Ghibli created a short that's like Nausicaa 1,000 years in the past of the god of destruction coming and destroying Tokyo. And if you watch this short 9-minute video, it was produced by Studio Ghibli. Hayao Miyazaki created the characters, obviously, and the designs, but you can see the influence of this short in Shin Godzilla with the destruction of Tokyo, and it's amazing.
It's beautiful.
And so, of course, I'm going to like Shin Godzilla because
Right.
there's the Ghibli tie-in.
Yeah, the tie-in,
but it's
for sure.
just a really good commentary, and there's a statue in Tokyo at one of the Toho theaters that's based on, it's a Godzilla statue that's Shin Godzilla. And
Okay.
I actually got to see it. So I'm like, of course I'm going to like
Nice.
that one. Now, my third favorite is a guilty pleasure.
Oh, well, that's okay.
I
We
bet
can
you I
have
could
guilty
gu- I bet
pleasure.
you I could guess it. Can I guess?
already-
Can I guess? Is it Son of Godzilla?
It is Son of Godzilla.
Which is okay.
Those don't look, I didn't watch this one, but it did not look good.
No, so Baby Godzilla appeared in later films.
Yes.
And he's a human-sized mascot of Godzilla, basically. Is
Yes.
what he
Guys,
is.
he's so cute.
Wait,
I
is he
don't
like
get it,
Baby
though.
Yoda cute?
I don't get what he does.
Absolutely
like
adorable.
I said before we recorded, he reminds me of the baby dinosaur in Dinosaurs.
Yes.
He looks,
Yeah,
he has
totally.
that-
With the big eyes.
That's the mama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is, according to Godzilla fans, it is one of the lowest. Everybody is like, Son of Godzilla is the worst Godzilla movie behind Godzilla Raids Again. And
No, there's one even worse than those two.
but the reason why I love it is, I don't know if they still do this, but KUEN, which is a local PBS type channel here,
Not sponsored.
because it's PBS, how could they sponsor
Right.
it? Every Friday night, they would do these things that were called Sci-Fi Fridays, where they would play these horrible B cult movies, which
Nice.
is my favorite thing in the entire world. Like movies like Them
Yeah.
and The Gila Monster, which is a giant Gila monster roaming around town.
Is them the ants one?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good one.
I have this undying love of these horrible B nuclear movies from the 50s and 60s. And so Son of Godzilla, at the time we called it at my house Baby Godzilla. Baby Godzilla came on, and it was one of the first, I think it was my first.
It's actually Groguzilla is what it's called.
It should be.
So this was one of my first forays into Godzilla, and it was my sister, my niece, and I. Every Friday night, we had a tradition of curling up in front of the television, and we would watch whatever movie was on. And it just so happened that Son of Godzilla was one of the ones that was on, and it just was so ridiculous. I mean, you laugh through the entire
Right.
thing
Totally enjoyable.
because it's ridiculous. And, and of course I was watching it with the child, and she was laughing along with it, and it just was a really good memory. And so I just have this undying love for Son of Godzilla.
That's great. So, Nicole, what are your 3 favorites?
Oh, my 3 favorites. Okay, this is so hard. So, well, my first one is Final Wars. Like I said, they just throw everything to it. They're just like the ultimate camp. I mean, I just love the ridiculousness of it.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
If you have a favorite creature, it's most likely in here.
Yeah, it's true.
Mechagodzilla's not in it, but everyone else is.
And that's the one where Zilla gets destroyed in like 2 minutes.
It's actually 20 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, they
Which
knock
they
him
did
out.
on
In the
purpose.
Sydney-
Yeah.
They do
they
on
knock him
purpose.
into the Sydney Opera House, I believe it is, and then
Yeah.
just
Just a
blast him away.
tongue in cheek. Let's get rid of this fake thing. Yeah.
And they actually, there is a version, is it the Japanese version? They actually said that Godzilla actually speaks and he says, told you that guy wasn't going to do anything.
That's mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love Final Wars. It's just ridiculous, but it is so fun. It's just one of those, it is the longest running movie, too.
Yeah, well, I guess the original cut of Godzilla Rides Again was 2 hours 40, but then they
Yeah.
cut that down.
Yes,
but this
thank
is
goodness.
just over 2 hours, if I remember
Yes,
right.
it's like 2 hours and 5 minutes. But I love every minute
Because
of it.
they need to get to the away from the humans and back to the monsters
And
quicker.
there's a couple common writers in there, too. So
That's why she likes
I like how you guys are sneaking in your other shows into this one.
yeah.
But it just shows you how integrated the whole community, the acting community is.
Right.
I'd say my second favorite one is Shin. Again, we're going to go back to Shin Godzilla. I like the storyline.
Apparently I really missed out by not watching
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That wasn't on my thumb drive.
I know you need.
I'll bring the thumb drive next time.
Yeah,
okay.
It's so awesome.
And by awesome, she means it's above average.
I kind of like the gory side of it when he's morphing and you just hear.
Yeah, no, it's gross.
You hear
It's
like
disgusting.
You hear like stuff falling off of him, and you're like, ugh, and I love it. I love the grossness of it, but it also has the best human element. Oh my gosh! See, this is a
And your last choice.
I would say Godzilla versus Destroya.
Okay.
I love it.
I'm going to check that one out.
It is. You would like it. It's very horrific. It's a very horrific movie. There are some elements you're just like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. Yeah.
That's the one he melts down in, right?
Yeah. The burning Godzilla. Oh, so first of all, he is in pain, literal pain. He is, well, because you saw in King of the Monsters when he goes nuclear, well, he is in pain this whole movie. He is about ready to explode. He is burning his insides and out. So when he's in the water's starting to boil and everything. And
Because he's like 1,300 degrees at this point.
He's very dangerous. But these other creatures, these crab creatures, they're just
Ibida.
yeah. They're worse than that. But you're talking like, and then when you see Destroya, it's basically Satan, embodiment of Satan, and it's so cool.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, I'd say that's probably my number 3.
So you haven't named any of the U.S. ones.
Oh, I actually loved the newest one,
Okay.
Godzilla versus Kong. Loved it.
Is that the best action you've seen from this franchise altogether?
I don't know, because I think it's just fresh in my head because it's the first time I've been in a theater for
Sure, yeah, and it's a
year.
refreshing
And
experience.
so it was so cool. Again, if you see this, you need to see it on the big screen because the action is so in your face. I love and so I love the first one. I love King of the Monsters. I like the original one that came out in 2014 just because there's a funny story that goes with it. I accidentally drugged up my friend. And
What?
Well, then.
And they made
Family
Godzilla
friendly.
versus Adora. They drugged him up. That's what they made.
and it was just so funny to see her reactions during the so I didn't do it.
No, it's fine.
She needed some help. She was in pain.
You're not explaining
I
yourself
helped.
right.
I helped. Okay.
This is recorded.
For the record. Yeah.
Digging yourself in deeper.
I know,
I
I'm just
see.
saying that my
So, but it
My
sounds
memory of it is good.
It sounds like you have so many. Like you could watch any of these and be fine.
most of them. There is a couple. I'm just like, if I'd never see them again.
Raids again.
Okay.
Godzilla Raids Again is horrible, but what is it? All Monsters Attack. Absolute crap.
Okay.
All it is stock. It's stock
monsters attack.
It's basically stock footage of all the previous movies. There's hardly anything new in it. And it's just like...
So we've talked about how people should probably start with the first movie, right? The Godzilla 1954.
Yes.
Shin Godzilla maybe at some point, because that one
Yes.
seems like high recommendation.
Yes.
So would you say, like, is there another movie maybe we haven't mentioned that people should watch as kind of an intro to Godzilla, or or would it be Godzilla 2014 to maybe make it a little more relevant to where we're at, to actors we know?
I'm probably one of the very few people that was not really big on 2014.
Well, not many people are. I got to be honest with you.
Well, then
I think I'm one
in
of the few that enjoyed it. So.
I don't know.
One thing
Because you don't see him.
I didn't have a lot of familiarity with the Godzilla franchise when I saw that movie. I think I knew Godzilla from fighting Charles Barkley, playing basketball against him in a
awesome.
commercial, and also from One Crazy Summer when Bobcat Goldthwait dressed up in a Godzilla costume.
That was awesome.
And so when I saw Godzilla 2014, I was like, oh, this will be fun to watch. And it was very unpredictable in the way that they handled some characters. And Godzilla was barely in the movie up until the last 10 minutes. And I was like, wow, really disappointing. Beautiful movie to watch, but really disappointing. But having watched more Godzilla movies now, I'm like, it makes sense. They have to save the monster antics until the end. They have to get through the human drama. And I do think 2014 really tried to add that drama.
But the dude actor, I don't even remember his name.
Aaron
He
Taylor
was-
Johnson.
Okay, he was that memorable. I can't even remember his name.
Precisely.
His character's name was Ford. I don't know. He
Yeah.
just was
Ford
like,
Birdie.
he was just kind of a energy suck. I
Yeah.
didn't like his character. Yes, you are right. There should have been more Bryan Cranston. I mean, he
Right.
was like the best part of the movie besides clearly the monster fight at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you're going to see a modern one, watch Shin.
Okay, so not even one of the U.S. ones. Shin over one of the U.S. ones.
Yes.
Okay, that answers that question.
So there you go. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Nicole, for being here with us today, and thank you for sharing your knowledge of Godzilla. As we dabbled before, but this was definitely one of those we got in the deep end on some of these. I think.
And if you want to know the secret about Hedorah, go ahead and email me.
Yeah, yeah, she'll be there.
It's not friendly.
It's not. It's like Pom Poko level.
Oh no.
Oh, not Pom Poko.
Oh, and then when you find out there's a male version in Final Wars.
I don't even want to ask.
Well, I know they changed him, but
I'll tell you afterwards.
okay.
But thank you for being here. Anyone you want to give a shout out to here at the end of the episode?
You guys for putting up with us.
Yes, thank you for dealing with our Godzilla nonsense.
No, and this is what's fun about Baconsale and guest episodes is you guys teach us, and I think the listener, about something that we haven't researched ourselves, right? Like we like to dabble. We like to be savvy enough in geeky things. And we've seen the American Godzilla versions and maybe some of the older ones, but this is new education. And sometimes it's not great. Sometimes it's Shin Godzilla. And it's something I'm like, whoa, I'm glad I saw that. So thank you. Like this is fun, new education.
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah.
But before we go, we'd like to give some love to our patrons, which includes from the I Am the Listener tier, no one special. Who's special?
Very special.
Very.
Glow Daniel, Babs, Plot Twist Media, Jennifer Kukowski, Sweet Bottom Cakes, Jessica Drought, Braden Winterton, Alicia Bass, Adam and Rachel Crump, Adrian Gray, Lady Terry Ann Findlay of Wigtonshire, and Sean Sanquist. And then we have from the Bacon Council, The Shadow, our favorite couple, the Madsons, Matt's Her Royal Highness Jessica Terry, Stephen Ross, Chris Anderson, woohoo! Hat Trick Nick, go Knights go! Woo! Ryan and Marley Farron, and Reverse Listener. Thank you, patrons.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You keep the lights on here in the Bacon Cave so Godzilla can find us.
Only half the lights are on right now.
We're half scared.
But if you want to find me, you can find me at 76Joel on Twitter. You can find me performing with Quickwits. They perform every Saturday night for free on Facebook. For more details, go to qwcomedy.com or go to the Quickwits Facebook page.
If you want to find me on Twitter or Instagram, it's at Kenny3DD. If you want to read my movie reviews, at ShowtimeShowdown.com.
If you'd like to connect with me, you can do so on Twitter and Instagram at Tumbling Mustard. But more importantly, make sure you're following Baconsale on social media. Go over to Facebook, like the Facebook page, and then you can go to at Baconsale on Twitter and Instagram and follow us there. Please leave a comment on the episodes. It's super fun for us to read, and we'll play along from time to time. Joel mostly watches those and does a great job.
Oh, thank you.
And while you're doing that, stop by tpublic.com/baconsale, where you can get yourself some fun merch like a t-shirt or a pillow or whatnot. And then if you
We sell whatnot now?
we do several whatnots. And then if you would like to support the show further, you can go to patreon.com/Baconcale, where additional financial support starts at just $3 a month, where you can get some fun bonuses, like potentially come on an episode of Baconsale. Woo! So there you go. Patreon.com/Baconcale.
So until next time, I can't believe this is the first Godzilla episode we've done. But if we continue conducting nuclear tests, it's possible that another Godzilla episode might appear somewhere in the world again.
I'll just do what Zack does.
Presuming everyone minds their mouth.
Godzilla's the worst. And it's like, Godzilla.
I don't think we've ever said.
Hold on.
Do you like that sound? The sound that Joel and I just collectively made. We were actually. That's the sound of one of Godzilla's greatest monsters.
Those hips don't lie.
Bye, Godzilla. You destroyed our city and killed my family.
Godzilla
Robots?
claps a lot.
Oh, all my work destroyed. By the way, there's a giant moth. Accept that reality. Couldn't they just get ninja powers like the rest of the reptiles out there or amphibians?
The center of all of
that was a
this.
Ninja Turtles joke.
How come he gets a king title?
Because
That belongs to Kong alone.
Zack killed Nicole.
Yep.
I didn't mean to.
Remember when
No,
Nicole
it's-
died in the Bacon Cave?
it's my fault because it was the bag
treat
of
bag.
gift. I killed Nicole.
Angerus, I'll get you.
That was
quite a flair.
Anime adds like 10 pounds.
Yeah.
I was missing a Mechagodzilla space in my homework.
Haven't you ever heard of Power Ups Game Boy?
And it's a smog monster. He's like a blob. And then he turns into a spaceship for a little bit.
He's cold. He's got to warm up.
Humans have been the real villain all along.
Pollution is bad.
Yeah.
Panthera.
I was you guys. I think I heard that sound when I started the movie, and you guys weren't even in the room.
He has extra face on his tail that's a laser.
Well, now you just ruined it. Mexico's real.
The newest guy, Big Boy. He's Big Boy.
Yeah, he's thick with two C's.
I'm going to go to this boxing match. I really hope a ballet breaks out. An awesome pizza place. I was thinking Sbarro's.
You just said Sbarro pizza. It was good pizza.
Yes.
Guys, he's so cute.
You're supposed to finger poop in the bacon cave.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. All is right.
It's basically Satan, embodiment of Satan, and it's so cool.
It's like Pom Poko level oxygen destroyer.
In Godzilla King of the Monsters from 2019, they actually do use that when he's fighting Rodan. They stick out the oxygen.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that. Thank you.
Good point
That
of
was one
order
of the
there.
Easter
Did I just
eggs, that's
become
right.
that guy?
You did.
I'm so sorry, Chris.
So now
That's
we have
hot.
it.
I don't respect her enough to pronounce her name, right?
Zendaya.
And she hasn't earned this single name.
She
Madonna,
hasn't.
Beyonce,
Cher.
yeah, fine. Cher, fine. Good. Zendaya.